third time that Jesus has appeared to the disciples after being raised from the dead. Easter Sunday, we were greeted with the story of an empty tomb. In John's Gospel, Jesus meets and speaks with Mary in the garden. Last week, we heard that Jesus appeared to the disciples who were in a room behind closed doors and said, "Peace be with you." A week later, the disciples were again in the house along with Thomas, and Jesus came again and said, "Peace be with you." Today's story has Jesus appear on the beach and share a meal with the disciples. Mary is in the garden at the tomb to be close to the last place she knew Jesus to be. The fishermen are on the lake fishing, going about their occupation. It is easy to determine what Mary and the disciples were doing. I have always wondered what the disciples were doing when in the room behind closed doors. Could it be that they had gathered for weekly prayer? A shared meal, reading of scripture, a singing of hymns? And when engaged in these activities, Jesus appeared and was present among them. Peace was shared. The Gospels share numerous accounts of the disciples and Jesus going to the temple to offer prayer, going to a quiet place for prayer, instances of going to the synagogue to read and hear scripture, meals that included reciting of songs and hymns. Praying, worshiping as a group was part of the disciples' regular life. In fact, it was part of the life and culture of the people around them, too. Do you remember the disciples asking Jesus to teach them to pray, just as John the Baptist had taught his disciples? I wonder if the prayer Jesus had taught them was part of their weekly prayer when meeting together. Now, my personal guess is that it was. It was recorded in the two of the Gospels, so it was known to those in the decades following Jesus' death and resurrection. Liturgical pieces that we use today, like the Lord's Prayer, are ancient, growing from the time of the early church. Jesus meets the disciples on the beach for breakfast, and there's quite a conversation. We hear an intense portion of the conversation where Jesus asks Simon Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" It is not for a lack of response that the question is asked more than once. Jesus is pointedly engaging Peter to reflect on the question, "Do you love me?" Then offers the how, "Feed my sheep." At the beginning of this week, Lutheran pastors in Atlantic Canada were at a retreat where Bishop Susan Johnson led us in a 3-day reflection on the Lord's Prayer. The combination of hearing Jesus' words last Sunday, "Do you love me?" and "Feed my sheep," along with the study of the Lord's Prayer, had me realize that the Lord's Prayer asks the same question and gives the same response. It is the message as that on the beach. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. Bishop Susan had us work through each section of the Lord's Prayer. First hearing the words as found in Luther's Small Catechism, then hearing a modern interpretation, followed by a question for us to reflect on in small groups. We learned that in praying the Lord's Prayer, we are intimately connected to peoples and communities around the world, past, present, and future. For each petition, we worked hard to interpret the words for today, in this time and place. In this prayer, one focuses on the intimacy of God's relationship with us, our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves and others, our relationship with earth. Jesus, in teaching this prayer, reminded the disciples of the care and intimacy that God extends to them and to us, and that once we have received such a gift, are then to extend the same care and intimacy Feed my sheep. Yes, Lord, with daily bread, as we forgive those who trespass against us on earth as it is in heaven. We were given homework. We were asked to rewrite the Lord's Prayer to illustrate our understanding of each phrase, to make the prayer alive in us and around us now. A few years ago, for our midweek Lent study, the congregation reflected on different rewrites of the Lord's Prayer. We noted how different translations, words, and phrases help the prayer expand our understanding. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. With Jesus' words in mind, I invite you to take the next 9 days and reflect on the Lord's Prayer bit by bit. If you have a catechism, the petitions are separated out in the section on the Lord's Prayer. Or you can take a peek this morning in the back of your red hymn book, page 1163, to see each petition. Take time to put the Lord's Prayer into your own words, and then feel free to share them with me by email. In baptism, promises were made that we would learn the Lord's Prayer. Through the years, in Sunday school and church, and as bedtime prayer, it is a prayer that we've learned by heart. I don't remember a time when I didn't know the Lord's Prayer. Repeatedly praying the prayer, it becomes part of us, influencing our relationship with God, ourselves, others, and creation. May your reflection on the prayer bring it to life once again and resurrect Christ within you to work through you to be Christ in the world. Jesus asked me, do you love me? Feed my sheep. My response is my homework version of the Lord's Prayer. God, who so loves the world, humans and creation, yet beyond the beyond. Holy is your name in a plethora of forms. Come with your vision, your kingdom be now. Warm our will to be akin to yours. May earth be in relationship and wholeness as it is in the fullness of your grace. Gift the world with gratitude to live and share abundance. Forgive breaking and broken relationships, sin, as we commit to reconciliation. Counsel us to live beneath our means. Deliver all from the hunger of wanting more. For in you and through you is common love, life-giving energy, and extreme exuberance.